Hi everyone, welcome back to the life of T and M. If you're new here, hi, my name is Mary. This is a joint YouTube channel with my boyfriend. I post all my videos under M's Corner and he posts all his videos under T's Corner. We also make a lot of fun videos together that you can find on our page. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Join us. We would love for you to join our journey. We have a lot of fun here. We go on vacations. He posts videos all about eBay and making money, and I do a lot of nursing and beauty videos. So if you're ready for this new video, stay tuned. So today's video is going to be a Walden University review. I posted a video back in January of me actually graduating from Walden University. I got my Master's of Science in Nursing with a specialization in nursing education. I wanted to come on here and give you a review of the school, my experience, pros and cons, because I got a lot of questions on my last video. If you haven't watched that video, go down in the description. I've linked it down below and go ahead and check it out and then come on back. For those of you who have watched it, that vlog was a lot of fun. I got to vlog my whole graduation and then going into our vacation. We actually went on a cruise right after, so that one was a lot of fun. But I did get a lot of questions about how was Walden? What was your experience? Can you tell us how you liked clinicals? I got a lot of DMs on my Instagram account asking me about the school as I was going through the process. So this video is going to be everything related to the School of Nursing at Walden University. So if you're interested in how my journey was, if you're thinking about going to Walden for your master's degree, this is the video for you. So go ahead and give this video a thumbs up if you're ready for my review. I attended Walden University from March 2018 to November of 2019. I then walked across the stage this January of 2020 and I'm finally making my review. So I am a new graduate from the school. So I want to talk about all my experiences that I went through during my time during this program. So if you're looking for your Master's of Science in Nursing, your MSN degree, I would highly recommend Walden. Now, I went for my specialization in nursing education, like I had just stated, and so I'm going to base my experience based on that program because they offer MSN degrees with various specializations. So I don't want to speak to all those, but for mine specifically, and I would hope that all the other programs run the same way because it is the same school. So if you're thinking of any MSN degree through Walden University, I'm sure this review will give you some good information, some good insight, and will hopefully help you choose whether you want to go to this school or not. So this program is tailored for the working nurse. You can do it part-time or full-time. What that means is all of their classes are 11 weeks long. At the end of the 11 weeks, you get a 2-week break and then you restart the class. So there's no summer break and no winter or fall break. It is all consecutive. So you do the 11 weeks, you get 2 weeks off, you hit another 11 weeks. They also offer part-time and full-time. So part-time means you only take one class at a time. So you take one class during the 11 weeks, you get 2 weeks off, and you keep going, so on and so forth. Now, if you do it full-time, that means you're taking 2 classes every 11 weeks, and then you're taking 2 weeks off. So you can finish the program in about 1.5 years if you go full-time, or it would take you about 3 years if you do one class at a time. Now, of course, I don't have any kids yet, and I felt like I didn't have that many distractions in my life. Yes, I was working full-time, but I thought to myself, let me just do this full-time, let me knock it out and get it over with. So I went full-time. I took 2 classes at the same time and I had a 2-week break. Now you're probably wondering, how was that? Some classes were very difficult and I would recommend taking them separately, but then of course that would prolong your graduation date. And some of them, when I took them together, it wasn't bad. What I loved about the school is that you are able to work and finish your master's degree. Whether you have to do it full-time or part-time, you can get it done. It is possible. The only requirement that wasn't online were your clinical hours. So each degree has different clinical requirements based on your specialization. For my specialization, it was 144 clinical hours that I had to do outside of the online classroom. I'll go into more detail with that. Before I get into all the details about Walden, I just want to let you know that if you're looking for a master's program, make sure that school is accredited. There are accrediting bodies for nursing schools, and you want to ensure that you are going to an accredited school. So how do you figure that out? You're probably asking, how do I know if it's accredited by what accrediting body? So what I would do is I would go to your Board of Nursing's website for your state, your country, wherever you are. For us in California, we have the Board of Registered Nursing in California. So you actually go on there and you look up schools. Under the schools, it'll list ADN programs, which are associate's degree. It lists schools that offer bachelor's degrees, schools that offer master's degree, also doctorate degrees, and if you're going for specialization such as family nurse practitioner. So I would go off of your Board of Registered Nursing website because they're gonna have the most factual data. They're gonna have the schools that are accredited and where they're accredited. They're gonna have graduation rates. They're gonna have a lot of good statistics. So that's where I started. I went on my Board of Registered Nursing website and I looked up schools. I prefer online. I know a lot of people do not like online. I prefer online because I am a very techie girl and I know how to work a computer and I love everything online format. So that's what I was looking for. If you're not a good person with computers and submitting papers, submitting videos, and you just feel like, you know, you don't have that learning curve, that's perfectly fine. You can go on there and find a school that you can actually go to. Now, the only thing with that is that if you go to a school on campus, it might not work out with your work schedule. Now, if you're able to move your work schedule around so that you can go back to school and go on campus, perfect. But for me, I had a set Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. I needed something that would work with my schedule. So I looked up all online schools on Board of Registered Nursing and I narrowed it down to about the top 3. Now, based on those top 3, it was because they were accredited and the accrediting bodies were listed on that website. And so then I went to each of their websites and I read their program review. I knew I wanted to do nursing education. So I went specifically to their website to look at that program and I looked at what classes do you need? Do you need any prereqs? I looked at all their requirements. I looked at the tuition cost. I looked at the clinical requirements. I just looked at all aspects of the program to see what would fit my needs specifically. And so everyone's gonna be different. So after I was reading Walden's website, I was sold. I loved how everything was laid out, their objectives for the course, the objectives for the program, everything just fit my needs and what I wanted, so I selected them. So Walden is a private university, and so of course it is gonna be pricier, but when I called, they weren't pushy. They explained everything. I had tons of questions. They answered everything, and they weren't like, you need to sign up and I could start you on Monday. They did say that they had a scholarship running, so I applied for it and I got it. $10,000 scholarship. I was so excited. So that was another incentive where I was like, okay, I think this is the school. It's calling my name. I think I definitely should do it. So I got the scholarship. I submitted all my transcripts for all the schools that I attended and all their verification process. So I did all that. It was really simple. They were really helpful. The system that they use was A1. So did that, got into the school. Okay, back to the review. Sorry, talking a lot. Now let me tell you a few things. Tuition is a little pricey. I did qualify for FAFSA, which I don't know if that's everywhere, wherever you guys are from, wherever you're watching this, but I did qualify for some federal student loans, so that was very helpful. I had my scholarship, and just know that the books are not included, so you do have to pay for them. However, a good little tip is I rent my books. There were some books that were cheaper to actually buy them, so I bought them, and the ones that were cheaper to rent, I just rented them. For me, once I'm done with a book, I want to get rid of it. Some people, once they buy it, they want to keep them. Perfectly fine. If you want to buy them, you can buy them. But just know, every class was anywhere from 2 to 4 books. So I spent roughly around $50 to the most I spent was probably $200 for one course. Now granted, I did full time, so I did 2 classes at one time. So when you first start, there's an introduction course that you take, and it kind of gets you navigating their whole school website. So that was a really good class. It taught you APA format, just a lot of the basics before you start a program. After that, I took 2 at a time. So it started off with fundamentals, and then it quickly ramped up. And so the classes in the beginning were not hard. Now, of course, everyone's learning curve is different, but for me, the first probably 4 or 6 classes were not too bad. It was very manageable. Now, of course, you need time management. I want to do a whole nother video on time management for nursing school, whether that be your ADN program, your BSN program, or even at your master's level, you need good organization and good time management skills to get you through any type of schooling. So I definitely had to up my time management skills because I am working full time and also going to graduate school. So I just want to break down how the classroom is. So every single teacher has to be working in the field and they have to have their doctorate degree in nursing. So all of these teachers are very educated. They are wonderful. They're working in the field. They know their stuff. That really helps. Every single teacher I had was available by call or text, email. They were there for you. The school's tech department was amazing. You call them for any of your needs. They were there. Their website was so up to date. It was beautiful. Their library, so you can access all their resources, was up to date. I mean, they were using top of the line technology. Every week you had a video that you would watch before you read your text. And for me, when I learn, I need to read something, I need to see something like a video, and then I need to take my notes. That's just how I learn. Everyone's different. So if you're a visual learner, they have that option. If you like to read and take notes, they have that option. So I really like the way the school was laid out for you to understand the information and pass the class. They were really there for you to pass the class. If you had something come up in your personal life, they understood. A lot of them just got done with their doctorate degree, or they've been in school, you know, since probably associates or bachelors. They've moved up to their doctorate degree. They understand life happens. A lot of the people in the program have been nurses at least a year. Many of the nurses had been nurses for like 20 to 30 years and were now going back. So the teachers understood, we have lives, things come up. You can't submit your assignment tonight, you need it tomorrow because something came up. They worked with you. As long as you reached out to them and you let them know and you're not always doing it, my experience was great. So in the classroom, your requirements were one discussion question due by day 3 or day 5, it depends. You had an assignment due usually every week, and then you had to reply to people. So how it looked, of course every class is different, but it would be your class starts on Monday, and by Wednesday your discussion post would be due. By Friday you would have to reply to 2 people on 2 separate days, and then if you had an assignment due, it would most likely be due on Sunday, and everything's due depending on your time zone at midnight. In California, it was 10:59, so I remember 10:59, turn in your assignment. I'm sure others who took online programs anywhere else, 10:59, no matter where you're at, it's like a trigger in your head. Gotta turn in my assignment. But so yeah, so you would do a discussion, and so how I set up my time management, just a real quick synopsis, was I would write my discussion post on Tuesday. So I'd read all the information on Monday, I would write it on Tuesday, and I would post it by Tuesday night or Wednesday. I'd reply to 2 people on Wednesday, post it on Thursday, post it on Friday. So I'm not actually doing work on Thursday and Friday, I'm just posting my replies. And then my assignment I would work on throughout the week. I would split it up and submit it by at least Saturday, because if you have any technical difficulties, which this is an all online course, you want to try to submit assignments at least the day before. So if something happens, you have time to reach out to the appropriate personnel to get that assignment turned in. So that's how it basically looked when you're taking 2 classes at once. Yes, you have 2 discussions due by Wednesday. You have 4 replies, right? And then you possibly have 2 assignments or more. So it can get a little much, but if you space it out on what days you're gonna do what class and how you're gonna do it, you can do it. Trust me, you can do it. If you make the time, you got this. And then clinical hours. So after you get through all your program, you have 2 classes left. You have 2 clinical courses. Now what I didn't know is you can't take 2 clinical courses at the same time. So in my head I'm calculating when I'm going to graduate, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to finish in June. Well, no, the last 2 classes, even though you've been doubling up the whole time, the last 2 are clinical courses, so they have to be taken separate. So that pushed me out 11 weeks. I was a little upset, but just so you guys know, if you go to Walden or you're at Walden, your last 2 you cannot take together. They have to be separate. Now I'm sure they make exceptions and things like that, but when I was there for mine, you had to take them separate. So now we're into clinical courses. So the clinical courses weren't too bad. The work was still heavy like other classes, and yes, you had to put in clinical time, but the clinical hours weren't bad. Each class was 72 hours. So the first 11 weeks you do 72 hours. The next class of 11 weeks you do 72 hours. So you kind of break it up. And if you look at your schedule, you can put out how you're gonna accomplish those 72 hours. I did that for the first and second class, and it wasn't bad to complete the hours. However, I'm going to talk about a downfall. So a con about Walden University is that you have to find your own preceptors for clinical. Now, they assist you with trying to find someone, but you really have to do the groundwork. So let me explain to you. My first one, I had to follow either a MD or a nurse practitioner. Now, of course, we're not going for our MD or NP or anything like that for my specialization. So I just had to follow them and do a lot of work. But it was hard for me to find someone. Now, when I did find someone, you have to have an affiliation agreement. So you have two things you have to submit to Walden. You have to submit your preceptor information for that to get approved, and then the field site that that provider works at, you have to get that approved. So I didn't know anything about Walden when I started. I don't know anybody who went to graduate school. And so I kind of had to figure it out myself. And so I reached out to a few doctors that I know. You know, it's really good to network. If you watch my last video about public health nursing, I would watch that about some important tips about networking that can really come into play in any point of your life, right? So I had a network, and I knew about 2 doctors that I wanted to follow. So got them, explained to them what my program was about, and they were game for it. So I'm like, cool, locked them down. Got all their information, filled out this preceptor form that it was like a preceptor application form, right, to submit for them to be approved. Got that approved, done. Now they're like, okay, where you're working, the affiliation agreement needs to be signed to ensure that you can work at that field site with that preceptor. Well, that's a whole nother ball game. It has to go through Walden University's lawyers, their legal team, and then it has to be approved by that field site. So if you're at a hospital, you're at a local public health department, you're at a big entity, it takes a long time to get that affiliation agreement signed. It has to go through both sets of lawyers, and it can be a nightmare. So for my first clinical course, I actually found a doctor, but my affiliation agreement didn't get approved in time. And if you don't get your affiliation agreement approved on time, you cannot start that class. So I was super stressed out, and I was like, oh my God, I have to get a preceptor locked in with an affiliation agreement. So then I found out, which nobody told me this whole time, you log into something called MedTech or Meditech or something like that, where you submit all your clinical hours and your time logs and all your documentation for clinicals. And I found something that said affiliation agreements, and I'm like, what is that? So me being nosy, I clicked on it, and it's all the sites that are already approved by Walden. So if I would have known that from the beginning, I could have looked at that list, picked a field site that was already approved, and then find a preceptor that way. So much easier. So if you're going to Walden or any other school and you have to find your own clinical sites and your own preceptors, ask them, do you already have a list of field sites that are approved that I can pick from? So much easier than trying to get it approved from the get-go. Waste of time, too much work. No, 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 no. So I found out that this doctor that I knew, his field site was approved. So I called him, explained to him everything, and he was like, yes, I'll do it. The affiliation agreement was already approved, so I had to submit it anyways. They approved it. Preceptor was an MD. It was the scope that I was looking for. They approved it. I was in within a week or 2. When I did my last preceptor and field site, I submitted it in December. It wasn't due till February, but I did it early, and by May, it was denied. So I was 6 months prepared, and it never got approved. Then I had 2 weeks to find someone, or I wasn't gonna be able to get into the class because it has to be approved before you start that clinical class. Thank goodness. So my next clinical course, I was like, okay, I already know what to do. I'm gonna look for a field site. So that's what I did. I got a list of them around me that were approved. I picked, you know, probably like 4 or 5. And then I looked and I called and I asked them, do you have a clinical instructor that meets these criteria? Found one, talked to this one individual that I really was interested in doing that department, told her all about my program, and she agreed. And so it was smooth sailing from there. So the only thing that sucks is that Walden wasn't very helpful when I was trying to get the first affiliation agreement approved. They took a really long time. I had to keep calling every couple weeks like, hey, did you guys approve my affiliation agreement or not? You know, and it was just a lot. It was very stressful. I was like, I'm not going to graduate on time if I won't get in. So going forward, if you're gonna go to Walden, look at the ones that are already approved and reach out to those sites for the person you're looking for to follow. So that would be my con regarding clinical. Other than that, clinical was not bad. I learned a lot. The program objectives I did meet at the end. The whole program was set up for you to meet those objectives, whether it was the course objectives or the program objectives. It was a very good program. I got to tie in what I was doing, what my previous experience was, and put it into what I was learning now in graduate school. I got to develop a program for my local community for all high school kids. I got to do a lot in my community and I loved it. I learned so much and I highly recommend this school. I'm sure people will have other opinions about it, but this is just mine and my specialization. Another tip is they have a Facebook group for whatever program you're in. It goes based on the date that you start the program. Get in that Facebook group, start connecting with classmates. Every class you might not see the same people because it's not like a program that you start with in the beginning. It's just a bunch of people in one class. In the next class, you may see them, you may not. I had maybe 2 people that were consistent throughout my whole program, but when you get into that class, try to connect with people because at the beginning of the class, the teachers want you to do an introduction every single class. And if you can connect with 1 or 2 and be like, hey, can we share emails so that if we have any questions during the program, we can help each other out? I would really recommend that. I had a few students that were taking the courses with me and I got to reach out to them and be like, hey, this is difficult. Is it difficult for you? Yes. We got to work through it together and get through it. It's just like nursing school. You know, I went to nursing school on campus when I was going for my RN and BSN, and you build a good bond with your nursing friends, and it's like you're probably still friends with them to this day because they understand the struggle and how to get through nursing school, because nursing school is not easy. I can do more videos on RN school. It was really good to connect because when you're in an online classroom, it's hard to connect with people. If your teacher's not having like Zoom meetings or Skype meetings or anything like that, you never see these people. It's all via email or discussion posts or just all online. And so it's really nice to connect with people and get phone numbers if they're willing to. Of course, they're going to be across many states, maybe in different countries. They're going to have different work times, but if you can connect with one person in each class to be your support through the program, it will help. So I have another con. It is group assignments. Yes, they're back in graduate school. We didn't have a lot of them, but the ones that we had, it's not like nursing school where the group projects, one person's not doing something, the other one's not doing something. Everyone was doing something, but we have different work schedules and we're at different time zones. And so we had 6 people in a group. Granted, I was the only one that lived in Pacific Standard Time Zone. Everyone else was in Central or Eastern or Mountain, and they worked nights, or they worked the weekends, or they worked, who knows, just crazy shifts. And I was Monday through Friday, I'd get off at 5, but that's already 8 o'clock if they're in the Eastern, right? And so everyone would be available, of course, at like 4 o'clock my time, and I wouldn't. So on those days that we wanted meetings, probably wanted to touch bases like every week, I would have to leave work early, or I'd have to make, you know, arrangements so that I can make these calls. So that was a little difficult. I wish groups could have been grouped together by time zones, or as close as you can, such as like Pacific and Central, or do Eastern and Mountain, or something where the times are closer, because having Pacific and then Eastern, which is 3 hours apart, and when people get off work, it's just hard. So that was very difficult. That was a big barrier. We got it done. We aced it because we had good communication. We actually shared our phone numbers and we had a group text going, and we used a lot of good softwares to get our papers done. But that would be one of the cons, where if the teachers can try to group them the best they can or have other means. I understand group assignments are important for building network and try to work as a team to complete the assignment, because you know, in nursing you work with many different people, so you need that teamwork and you need that structure. So I get it, but it's just hard when it's all online and people are doing numerous different things. So another thing I want to say is that there was a lot of PowerPoints. There was downloading Microsoft documents to fill them out. You do have to make sure that your papers are APA, and when you submit them, they don't get messed up. So if you are concerned about that and using a lot of technology to submit your papers, I would highly recommend that you do a lot of research and make sure this is the route you want to go. Because if you submit a paper and the margins are off, some teachers, yes, may dock you half a point for not following APA, but sometimes the software you're using, the computer you're using, just didn't format it right. When you submitted it, it messed it up. So there are some difficult things like that that make it a little hard, and I get it for people who, you know, just aren't good with computers. But the tech department will really help you out. They're really there for you if you need anything, and teachers do understand if you have any issues come up with technology. So I just want to touch on the actual classes real quick. Like I said earlier, some of the classes weren't bad, but there were some difficult ones. So it was when you start getting into physical assessment, and I think it was advanced either pathophysiology or physiology. Those were difficult. So a lot of the classes before you get into your last core classes, which I think is 4, it's all the same prereqs as someone going for their family nurse practitioner, your FNP. So I felt like this is really advanced. I'm not looking forward to diagnosing anybody, running labs, knowing what medications to give, their side effects, comorbidities, things like that. I was like, whoa, this is a lot. But after talking with my counselor that I had there, he had stated that, you know, if you're gonna be a master's prepared nurse, you have to know in-depth knowledge about nursing. And this is what comes with it. You have to know in-depth knowledge on assessment and on treatment and on medications, which I get to a point, yes. If I need to teach bachelor level students about assessment, physical assessment, medication interactions, yes, I need to know. But those classes were hard. So I would suggest if you get into physical assessment, it's advanced physical assessment and advanced pathophysiology or something like that. But there were 2 advanced courses. It was almost like med surg in nursing school, but like way harder. I would suggest that you take those separately. I barely made it out of those. I passed my master's program with a 4.0, but boy did I work my tail off. I took a lot of days off of work towards the end in my harder classes, but I would suggest taking those 2 separate. I'll link the actual courses down below because I can't remember the exact names right now. But once you start getting into the advanced courses, I would definitely take those 2 apart. Those are the only 2 classes for me that were very difficult, and I felt like there's a lot of workload in both of them that they need to be separated. But you know me, wanted to get it done. All the other ones with time management and organization, I was able to do it. So my whole program took me 1 year and 8 months. I started in March with the beginner class, but when my program actually started, it was 8 weeks later, because that first class is 8 weeks. So I started technically the program in June, and then I finished in November. So once you successfully complete your last 2 clinical courses, you get all your hours submitted, you get your time log submitted, and you do your practicum project, you then finally finish and you can graduate. Now I wanted to talk about the practicum project. So they have a Master's of Science in Nursing practicum manual, and each specialization has their own practicum. This is like the most difficult part of graduate school, I'm sure, for anyone in graduate school. It is a project that you have to do very well on. It tests your knowledge and your skills that you've obtained during the whole program, and it's like, this is your project. This shows what you've learned all through your experiences while being a nurse, and it's like, blah, here's my final project, here's what I learned, let me pass this school and get out of here. So the practicum project I did, I based on a needs assessment that I conducted at my field site and with input from my preceptor, of course. And so I was actually following a trauma unit in an ER, and they were focused on trauma prevention. And so I got to analyze all their data and see what trauma injuries were coming in, what age groups, where do we think we need more education. So I identified gun violence, and the age group I chose was individuals aged 12 to 17. So that gives you middle school to high school. And I developed a program to teach them about gun violence. And so I actually did it in a fun, interactive way. So of course you have to do all your research, and mine is nursing education. So I very much focused on how I can come across to that age group. So I did all my research on gun violence, and I got to develop this PowerPoint, and I actually put a game inside of the PowerPoint. So yes, they have to listen to this PowerPoint. I'm making it interactive while I'm presenting it, and then I let them know at the end, we're gonna play a fun game, so make sure you pay attention. If you want to take notes, you can. And so that gets them from the beginning like, oh, okay, there's gonna be a little quiz at the end, a little game, so let me pay attention. Made it real short. I actually put in a cute little video. So not only was there text on there, I was reading it to them, they could take notes, and I actually showed a video. And then at the end, I split them up into 2 teams and I let them play this fun interactive game that of course was like a quiz on what they just learned. And so I got to develop that with my preceptor based on the need in our community, and it came out amazing. The field site that I was at actually adopted it, and they were going to start using it for our community, for all of our high school kids and I believe some of our middle schools. So that was actually really cool, like something that I worked on really hard, that I was passionate about, that I learned about. I got to put as an educational PowerPoint and disseminate that information to the community. And so I have that, and if you guys are interested, I would love to share it, maybe do another video explaining how I came up with it and how I completed my practicum project. But that's what I did, and in my last class, that was my final project that I got to submit along with all my hours that I completed. And I ended up getting an A on it. I was so happy, and I actually just checked in with my preceptor not too long ago, and she stated that she was going out to the high schools and she was educating them with it. So that was really cool. You can come up with various practicum ideas. It doesn't have to be too hard. When I was reading all the guidelines, I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't feel like I'm smart enough. I don't know if I could do the research. Like I don't really know what to do. And then I talked to one of my counselors and she gave me some ideas, and then I actually emailed my teacher for that practicum course, and I was like, hey, can you give me some ideas of what your past students did? And so sure enough, she sent the whole class like 4 past projects that other students did, of course with their approval. And it was so cool to see the various different ways. Like someone did something super measured, like she taught a class, she got statistics out of it, she got it approved by the board for it to be CEUs, continuing education hours. Like this one was very in-depth, and I was like, ooh, does it have to be like that? But then you would see someone that taught a class on yoga to help de-stress ER trauma nurses, and you saw how they just came in and did a class, yet she got data out of that. And for me, I was like, oh, so you can be very creative or you can be very measured. And someone also did a frequently asked questions sheet based on research with a PowerPoint, and I thought that was a really cool way to also do your practicum. So it was really cool to see you don't have to just have a rigid evidence-based project. It's just a 15-page paper and that's it. So you get to have a lot of fun with it, a lot of creativity, and something that's going to help the community. And so yes, there was a lot of research into it. I read a ton, I downloaded articles, and for it to be considered evidence-based, I had to get a lot of evidence, obviously. But that was really cool to finish my school with that project. So guys, I think that's all I have for my review. I'm sorry if this went a little longer than expected. You know, as always, if you guys have more questions, leave them down in the comments. I would love to answer them. And if you want anything elaborated on that I talked about in this video, I'd be more than happy to. But if you are thinking about Walden, especially for my specialization, I just finished the class a couple months ago, I would highly recommend it. I learned so much. Also, let me know if you guys want me to do any other nursing videos. Like I said before, I was an EMT, so I went to EMT school. I have my experiences on that. I did go to LVN school, so licensed vocational nurse. Then I also did a bridge program. So I did the LVN to RN, but it was also the bachelor's program. So it was the LVN to RN and BSN. So when I graduated, I got my bachelor's degree in nursing, and then I also got my RN degree, and then I got my master's. So I have a lot of tips and tricks that I want to do, but I want to know what you guys are interested in, and I would love to do many, many more. So go ahead and leave them down in the comments, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you guys in the comment section. Well, thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe. Join us. We have a lot of fun here and want to keep making a lot of fun videos. So thank you so much for watching. You guys take care and have a great day. Bye.